Israeli ministers approve a bill aimed at blocking the controversial release of prisoners in negotiations with the Palestinians. The move draws an immediate condemnation from the Palestinians. Voting underway on a referendum for self-rule in 2 regions of eastern Ukraine organized by pro-Russian separatists. And the Syrian election campaign begins amidst civil war. President Assad faces 2 opponents, but is all but sure to maintain his rule. Welcome back to the News Today. This is the Daily Debate. The Israeli Ministerial Committee on Legislation decided today to pass a proposed bill that would prevent the pardon of convicted terrorists. The law, if passed in the parliament, could have severe implications in the future. What will happen, for example, if another Israeli soldier is captured by Hamas in Gaza or by Hezbollah in Lebanon? Could future negotiations with the Palestinians proceed without releasing Palestinian prisoners? And with me is Professor Sion. Good evening. Thank you very much for coming.
Good evening.
Law professor at Ariel University. And Mr. Ashraf Ajrami, former Palestinian Minister of Prisoner Affairs. Thank you very much for coming.
Good evening.
This issue is very close to your heart because you were the Minister of Prisoner Affairs, and you know how sensitive this subject for the Palestinians, but this subject is also sensitive for the Israelis. Do you think that this law will hurt the peace process eventually?
Yes, I don't think that it can help the Israeli government. It restricted the Israeli government to have a political decision about the releasing of the Palestinian prisoners. After all, any settlement between the 2 sides must be agreed by the Palestinian side. And the Palestinian side, the Palestinian leadership, cannot neglect the prisoners issue. The release of the prisoners and the release of the land is one integrated issue. So there is no option that the Palestinian leadership can give up this issue and can accept the Israeli condition not releasing the Palestinian prisoners in any settlement or peaceful agreement between the 2 sides.
Mr. Sion?
Well, first of all, until about 20 years ago, Israel did not negotiate with terrorists. You know what happened in Entebbe and in other places? Israel did not negotiate. The United States does not negotiate with terrorists. No country negotiates with terrorists. Now, the whole Oslo Agreement was built on peace. And peace means the end of hostilities, the end of terror. So when the Palestinian Authority takes the terrorists and makes them holy people, makes them shahidim, makes them heroes, it's exactly the opposite of making peace. I can understand that in the end, when there is real peace, not paper peace, but real peace, some of these murderers will be set away. But at the moment, there is no any reason for that.
Do you understand, Mr. Al-Ajrami, the voices in the Israeli society that are saying, okay, nobody's promising us anything. We are in a process. Nobody's promising us that tomorrow in the morning when we will release the Palestinian prisoners, there will be peace. So how come Israel needs to release prisoners when it's not getting anything from the Palestinians? So you release murderers when you have an actual and absolute 100% security in your own country. And this is not being achieved from the Palestinians.
Yes, of course, because the conflict continues all the time. So not just Palestinians killed Israelis, also the Israeli IDF and the settlers killed Palestinians. And when we see how many civilian people from the two sides killed by the other side. The Palestinian civilian people murdered.
Yeah, but Ami Popor is still in jail. We cannot imagine a situation where Yigal Amir, the assassinate of the murderer of Yitzhak Rabin, prime minister, will be freed from jail. This is not something that you can actually understand when these are people that have blood on their hands.
But
it's not that they're committed or throw a stone or were only prisoned because they thought about this way or another.
But they freed the Jewish terrorists who killed or murdered Palestinian people. We don't see this pan of the conflict, because if we see the Israeli soldier and what they did for the Palestinian people, and just look at this pan, we can't reach any agreement between the two sides. We must see the panorama of the conflict.
So there is a point in what Mr. Ajrami is saying. If the Jewish underground was released in the 80s, why shouldn't Israel do the same for the Palestinian prisoners?
This equation is really ridiculous. There is a difference in the Palestinian Authority, in the Palestinian people, in Gaza, in Judea and Samaria. Those people are hailed, they are considered heroes, while if there are a few, and this equation, when you speak about murdering a child of 3 months old in his bed, you can compare this to what a very, very tiny minority of Jews did to the Palestinians, and they were actually, everybody was against them. Everybody. Nobody in Israel, in Israeli society.
But
not only in politicians.
They got a pardon and they were released. Let's not forget that.
Yes, because you have 1,000 Arab Palestinians released. So there was one incident that some of the Jewish terrorists were released to make some sort of an equation. But this didn't happen again. I mean, you cannot equate one with the other. We're talking about thousands, tens of thousands.
We're talking about, if we're talking about terrorists, and the Israeli society is very much loves the comparison with the Palestinians. So if you're talking about a terrorist, you should refer to a terrorist like he is a terrorist. So there are some Jewish terrorists and there are some Palestinian terrorists. Both of them should get equal rights.
Yeah, they get
equal
treatment. They don't get. You see, what happens now is that Arab terrorists were released. 1,000 Arab terrorists were released only recently, but no Jew was released. Where's the equation here? No Jew was released because of that. They were talking about it, that maybe we should release also Jewish terrorists, but they were not. They were not released.
It's not the same case.
You see these pictures that we're seeing on the screen. You see these pictures that we're seeing on the screen. These are people that murdered Jewish innocent Israelis. Not only Jewish, because Israeli Arabs were also killed in terror attacks. These are people who killed and murdered other people. Do you understand? To receive them like heroes, it is problematic. This is not a natural way to receive a person who killed somebody else, who killed an innocent person.
But here in Israel, they forgot all the time, before establishing the Israeli state, that many of the Israeli leaders considered terrorists, and they considered them, the Israeli Jewish people, considered them as heroes. I'm speaking about personality like Shamir and others, because they struggled to have an independent state like all the people. They think of
we're talking about.
But we, the Palestinian leadership, don't agree with any attack against innocent people. But
no?
we can't. We don't agree. But we can't see this situation in this conflict.
Let me make it a little bit harder on you, and then I'll make it harder on you. To put when Abu Mazen is, when Mahmoud Abbas is saying to the Israelis, you will release the fourth stage of the Palestinian prisoners, and then I will get back to the negotiation table with you. This is like playing with kids. You will do what I tell you, you will release them, and then I will get back to the table, not even to get back to business, not to receive even, not to receive even something from the Palestinians, just to talk, only to talk. Israel needs to release prisoners. Why?
There was agreement between the Americans and the Palestinians, and between the Americans and the Israelis, that the Palestinians give up the demand of stopping all the building in the Israeli settlements in the West Bank, and on the other hand, they just want to release a few of the Palestinian prisoners. And we spoke about the Palestinians who were arrested before Oslo Agreement, before any negotiation between the two sides. We didn't demand to free all the Palestinian prisoners as a demand or condition to start the negotiation. The Palestinian had three conditions or demands. First of all, stop the building in the Israeli settlements. Second, to agree on 1967 borders as a reference of the peace process.
Just a second. Like I told you, I made your life a little bit hard. I want to make your life harder.
I want to answer these things because this equation, thinking about Shamir. Did Shamir murder a little boy? Did Shamir murder women and children? How can you make an equation? I mean, it's ridiculous.
No, it's not ridiculous. This is the fact.
Let's talk.
Come. This trying to say that
these are facts.
To say that Israeli leaders,
the international law.
Excuse me, I did not interfere with your talk. I want to answer because these things are untrue. And they have no basis at all. You cannot compare what the Israeli Haganah and the Israeli Lehi did before 1948 with what the Palestinians are doing today.
Now, wait a minute. A murder is a murder. They're trying to bomb.
Hundreds of Palestinians and people in the villages.
Who killed people in the villages?
Qasim and
which Qasim? No, wait a minute. These things are being repeated again and again. There is no basis to that. Let me point out one thing. The Oslo Agreement was to make peace and the end of hostilities.
It is not
what? Excuse me. Let me first of all make my point. The Oslo Agreement was brought into light to make peace. In other words, the end of hostilities. What Arafat did after the Oslo Agreement was signed was that the hostilities began, and people, not only Jews, people were killed and murdered in buses, in cafes, in movies, in movie cinemas, in other places. Now, you compare this in any way to what the Jewish Haganah did in 1948?
Yes,
no way.
They did the same.
No way. Now let me tell you one more thing. Let me tell you one more thing. You have
even against
the Arabs,
the British.
The Arabs have no right. The Arabs have no right to ask of the stopping building in Judea and Samaria. They have no right to that.
Why?
What do you mean why?
It is Palestine.
No, it's not Palestine. You're wrong.
You can negotiate.
Palestine was created. Palestine was created by Israel. There was no Palestine. Israel created Palestine.
1948, it was Palestine.
No,
and it remained Palestine.
It was Palestine not only for Arabs. It was Palestine for Jews, and there were Jewish Palestinians. There were Jews Palestinians. There were Arab Palestinians.
But
they're not only Arabs.
There was minority.
You cannot take Palestine to say that. The Palestine Post is the Jerusalem Post, and the Palestine Symphony Orchestra is the Jewish Jewish orchestra. So when you say Palestine, you speak about Jews and Arabs alike, not only for Jews.
I want to ask you something. We are sitting here, and we know that this law that passed today, that will pass in the next few weeks, it has a political smell. We know that some political. the law that to release, not to release prisoners from prison that has that has blood on their hands. We know that these are some political movements that are trying to maybe sabotage the peace process. And I want to ask you, and try, because we have just only 50 seconds, if it was the son of one of the ministers, if it was another soldier, if it was somebody who's close to the government, will the government insist on passing this law?
Well, this law is passed before knowing what's going to happen. In other words, it can be that the son of a minister is a soldier and will be kidnapped. It's possible. When the law is there, it does not differentiate between a son of a minister or a son of a buzaglo. It doesn't make any difference.
You know, but in Israel, it's a little bit different.
No, but when there is a law, I'm talking about the law. How to implement it is a different matter. But I'm talking about the law. The law will apply to everybody.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming. Thank you. We're going out for a small break, 2 minutes break, and then we will be back for the I-24 News one-on-one. Don't go anywhere.